Sea mines might sound like something out of World War II, but they remain one of the most effective naval weapons ever invented. They're cheap, they're easy to deploy, and they force even the most advanced navy in the world to move slowly and carefully. Some mines float just beneath the surface, tethered to the seabed with cables. If a ship hits them, they detonate instantly. Others sit quietly on the ocean floor, waiting to detect the magnetic signature, vibration, or engine noise of a passing ship. And once they trigger, the explosion can rip open a hole below the waterline, often the most vulnerable part of any vessel. Even modern warships can be severely damaged by a single mine. That's why mine warfare has always been a nightmare scenario for naval commanders, because unlike missiles or aircraft, you often don't see the threat coming. It's already waiting for you underwater. Iran has spent decades building up a large inventory of naval mines. Military analysts believe the country could deploy them from fast attack boats, converted civilian vessels, and submarines. And the geography of the Strait of Hormuz makes it particularly dangerous. Shipping lanes there are only about 2 miles wide in each direction, so if mines appear in those corridors, commercial traffic could grind to a halt almost immediately. Which raises a tense question. If that happens, who clears the path? For decades, the United States Navy has trained specifically for this kind of scenario. Mine warfare may not sound dramatic compared to aircraft jets or fighter jets, but in reality, it's one of the most complex naval operations there is. Because the first rule of mine clearance is simple. You have to find them before they find you. And that's not easy when they're hidden underwater, sometimes buried in mud or sand. So the Navy uses specialized ships and aircraft designed specifically to hunt them. For many years, one of the Navy's primary mine-clearing platforms has been the Avenger-class mine countermeasures ship. These ships look modest compared to destroyers or cruisers, but they're built very differently. Their hulls are made with materials that reduce magnetic signatures, sometimes even wood layered with fiberglass, because many mines trigger when they detect a ship's magnetic field. Imagine the irony. A modern warship designed to be less detectable than a fishing boat. These ships move slowly through suspected minefields, scanning the seabed using high-resolution sonar. The sonar creates detailed images of the ocean floor, and operators look for anything unusual, a round object, a cable, something that shouldn't be there. When they find something suspicious, the next step begins, and that's when things get really delicate. Once a possible mine is identified, the crew usually sends down a remotely operated vehicle. Think of it as an underwater drone with cameras and lights. One example is the mine neutralization vehicle. It slowly descends through the water toward the object. Operators watch on screens aboard the ship as the camera approaches, and sometimes it turns out to be nothing, just a rock or debris. But other times, it's exactly what they feared, a naval mine sitting quietly on the seabed. At that point, the robot places a small explosive charge next to the mine. Then it backs away, and from a safe distance, the charge detonates. One mine down, but maybe dozens more to go. Ships aren't the only tools used to clear mines. The Navy also relies heavily on a massive helicopter called the MH-53E Sea Dragon. This thing is enormous, with a rotor diameter wider than many houses. It can tow specialized equipment through the water behind it. Picture a helicopter flying low over the sea while dragging a system hundreds of feet long beneath the surface. These systems can do several things. They can scan for mines using sonar, or they can simulate the magnetic and acoustic signature of a large ship. Why would they do that? Because some mines detonate when they detect those signals, so the helicopter intentionally triggers them from a safe distance. There's a loud underwater explosion, a column of water erupts, and one more mine is gone. But the helicopter crew has to fly slow, low, and steady over potentially hostile waters, which raises another question. What happens if enemy forces decide to interfere? Clearing mines is dangerous enough on its own, but doing it while tensions with Iran are rising adds another layer of risk.
Iran's naval forces, including units of the Islamic Revolutionary Corps Navy, operate large numbers of small, fast boats in the region. These vessels are designed for swarm tactics. They move quickly, they carry rockets, machine guns, and sometimes anti-ship missiles. And in a narrow body of water like the Strait of Hormuz, they could appear very quickly. Over the past few days, the United States has already started targeting the source of the problem, the vessels used to deploy the mines. According to U.S. Central Command, American forces carried out strikes on Iranian naval units operating near the Strait of Hormuz, destroying at least 16 boats believed to be used for laying sea mines. These weren't large warships, but smaller vessels that can quickly move into shipping lanes and drop mines in just minutes before disappearing again. U.S. officials say the goal of those strikes is simple: stop the mines before they ever hit the water. In fact, the campaign has focused heavily on Iran's so-called mine-laying enterprise, targeting both the boats themselves and storage sites where mines are kept. Not every mine requires a robot. Sometimes the simplest method is also the fastest. If a floating mine is spotted on the surface, sailors may simply destroy it using heavy machine guns or automatic cannons mounted on the ship. You might imagine sailors lining the deck of a destroyer, firing bursts into the water until the mine detonates. Other times, explosive charges are dropped nearby, and occasionally even missiles or small precision weapons are used if the mine poses a risk to nearby ships. It's messy, it's loud, and it's far from elegant, but in a critical shipping lane, speed matters. The ultimate goal of a mine-clearing operation isn't to remove every mine in the ocean. That would take forever. Instead, the Navy creates a safe corridor, a narrow channel wide enough for commercial ships to pass through safely. That corridor is carefully mapped and constantly monitored. And once it's opened, the next phase begins: escort operations. If tensions escalate further, U.S. and allied warships may escort commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Destroyers move ahead of the convoy, aircraft patrol overhead, surveillance drones scan for threats, tankers follow in line like a slow-moving convoy. It's a system that has been used before during previous tensions in the Persian Gulf, but it's never routine because every trip through the strait carries the same underlying tension. What if another mine appears? What if a small boat approaches too quickly? What if the conflict spreads further?